Hi everyone, happy Thursday. Double checking to make sure I'm live. Hopefully you all are getting ready to join me. Double checking. Yes, I am live. Hi, happy Thursday. This is Thursday, October 26th. It's 7 p.m. I am April Davis of April Davis Creations. I'm an independent demonstrator with Stampin Up. And I've been with Stampin Up this time around, and I'll tell you that little story in a second, but I've been with Stampin Up this time around for about 3 years. And it wasn't until this year, 2023, that I decided to start building a business. Prior to that, and 2 times prior to that when I was a demonstrator, I was just a hobbyist. I just joined Stampin Up for the discount. But I've been with Stampin Up for, gosh, I can't even tell you how many years, but I've joined 3 different times. So I wanted to be sure and share that with you, because before we get into the class and I'm sharing with you what we're going to be making, there's a couple of things that I just want to cover. And one of those things that I want to cover is, let me get it set up for you. See if I can do this. How about this? There we go. Is the starter kit special that we've got going right now. We've only got 5 days left of it. I've got to talk about it because it's an incredible special, and it's the reason why I joined 3 different times. Stampin' Up comes up with some incredible kit specials. And, you know, if you want to build a business, that's great. But if you don't want to build a business, you just love the project, the product, you love creating, and you like getting your product at a discount, this kit special is great because we're celebrating 35 years. Stampin' Up is having their 35th anniversary. And they have a 35% off special or a 35% more special. So just quickly, we're going to baseline it. Always the kit is $99 and you get to pick $125 worth of product. That's the baseline. That's the special that they always run. The $125 worth of product that you pick is anything you want out of the catalog. This particular special that does end in 5 days, the end of October, you can either select a kit that you pay 35% less for. You still get your $125 worth of product, but you only pay $64 and some change. So instead of the $99, you're paying $64 and some change. Or you can do the 35% more and get pay $99 for your kit and get $168 worth of product. So if you've got a big wish list and you're not really interested in selling, that was me several times, you just want to get that discount, you want to get good value for your money, this kit is amazing. The starter kit is amazing. So I just wanted to touch on that again because it expires in 5 days and I just didn't want you to miss out. I see Mom joined. Hi Mom, good to see you. I'm going to switch to the next thing that I want to share with you. And that is just to remind everybody, let me see if I can do this. Let's click this one. Whoops, sorry. There we go. I wanted to remind everybody that we have some amazing kits. The kits that we have are in the online store. We've got dozens of them, literally, and they're all inclusive. So if you're not interested in really getting all the supplies that you need to craft, if you don't have it, but you really want to start doing some crafting and making your own cards, you've got to go out and look at our kits. And I'm featuring the Rustic Christmas Countdown Kit because it's so pretty, and it's like an advent calendar, only it's envelopes, and you can fill the envelopes with fun little goodies, and you can see obviously how it's decorated. The kit even comes with the clothespins that you can hang from a banner or you can hang from the tree. So I wanted to be sure and feature that as well, so just in case you guys are interested in something like that. And the last thing that I want to talk about before we switch over to creating the cards, is just what this is. This is a class to go. And what that means is that you can actually, if you choose and you like the cards and you want to make the cards, you can actually get this kit for free. I will send it to you for free for a minimum order of $40 from my online store. And the information is here. I'll also put up some information later just to remind you. But basically what happens is you place an order in my online store and I send you the kit for free. You're going to get 3 cards and 2 sets of each of those cards. So you're going to be able to make 6 cards. If you happen to place an order for $50 or more, you're actually going to get a set of the in color dots for free. A brand new set, so you can use these to decorate your cards as you create. One thing you need to know is that the bundle that I'm featuring tonight is if you want to make the cards exactly the way that I'm making them, you're going to want to make sure you have the bundle. All I can provide you is the cardstock, the designer series paper. I can do some die cutting for you if it's not part of the bundle. But if you want to make the cards exactly the way I'm making them, you're going to want to get the bundle. If you've got similar supplies at home, you've got pumpkin stamps and you've got pumpkin dies and different sentiments, then take the kit and create your own creation and have fun doing that. So you don't have to get the bundle in order to get the kit for free, but you might want the bundle if you want to create them exactly the way I'm creating. So let's go ahead and see if I can turn this so that you can see what I'm working on. There we go. I've got the catalog open. This is the mini catalog. It expires actually the end of December, but we've got lots of time right now, and the bundle that I'm featuring is the bundle that I featured the last couple times. I love this bundle. There's so much you can do with it. I am going to switch it up next week, so we won't be doing this bundle next week, but I want to give it one last hurrah. It's called the Pick of the Patch bundle, and basically you've got your stamps that you're going to have, and lots of pumpkins, some leaves, sentiments. You can go Halloween with the jack-o'-lantern. So you've got the stamp set, and then you've got the punch. This is called a punch builder, and we're going to be doing a lot of building this evening with it. What I do want to point out with respect to the catalog, though, is that when I feature bundles from the catalog, I want you to know that you could purchase the stamp separately, or you could purchase the punch separately, but if you purchase them together, it's a bundle, and then you will save 10%. So be sure when you're looking at this or any of the other sets that we've got in the catalogs to check to see if there's a special discount because you're purchasing the stamps and the dies, or the stamps and the punch together. So let's go ahead and move this out of the way, and let's get started on our first card. And I'm going to set this up so that hopefully all you can see is, yes, me. So my hands. So let me show you the cards that we're creating tonight. We've got this one. This is going to be our first one that we create. We've got a stacked pumpkin card. And then we've got another Harvest of Blessing card. In fact, all of my sentiments tonight are Harvest of Blessings. There's a number of different blessings. There's a number of different sentiments on the stamp set, but it just so happens that tonight I'm using a Harvest of Blessings. So let me move these two out of the way. We're going to focus on this card first, and I'm going to pull the kit in. And it's important for me to show you this kit because this is exactly what you would be receiving if you got the to-go kit and you got it for free. Basically, you're going to get a kit. It comes with your own envelope as well because obviously you want to be able to share your card once you've made it. And sharing cards creates happiness, so you want to be sure to share. But you'll get your kit, and you'll actually get 2 of each card, but you've got your Pretty Peacock cardstock. This designer series paper is from the All About Autumn designer series set. I've got a couple of pieces that come from our oxidized copper specialized paper. Let's see if I can pull this down a little bit. We've got a piece of vanilla, very vanilla cardstock that we're going to be stamping on and actually embossing. we've got a piece of very vanilla cardstock for our sentiment. And then you'll get a piece of scrap early espresso because we've got to punch out stems for our pumpkins. I've already got a scrap up here that I'm going to use. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I like to do when I start a card is get my stamping out of the way first. Then I can assemble. So let's go ahead and we're going to pull our very vanilla cardstock out. I've also got my Stampin' Pierce mat. If you've been watching my videos, you have heard me talk before about how the photopolymer stamps just don't have a lot of cushion to them. So I'm sure to use my Stampin' Pierce mat to give a little bit more cushion to the stamp. Sometimes when you stamp on a hard surface, the stamp doesn't connect completely with the paper, and so this gives you an opportunity to be able to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out my Pretty Peacock ink. This is what we're going to stamp our leaves in. So I think I mentioned in my Facebook post, I'm going rogue on the colors. Pretty Peacock isn't necessarily a fall color, but you can see how pretty it is. So with the leaves, I'm just going to make sure that I get a good coverage on my leaves. I'm just going to test them out to make sure I'm happy there's not anything on my stamps or anything like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just stamp, and then I'm going to do a second generation stamping. So you can see I stamped, and then I stamped again. And then I'm going to go back in, and maybe I'm going to do another full stamp here and a second generation stamp here. And I'm going to show you something. I'm going to try to fix this. But if you get ink on the edge of your stamp, see if I can bring this up so you can see. Do you see this little bitty mark here? Sometimes that happens. And you don't want it to happen, but sometimes it does. And it happens because you're getting ink on the edge of your stamp. So you want to make sure when you're stamping, stamp down and pull up. Stamp down and pull up. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to line this up, and I'm going to put one of my darker stamps over the top of that. And oh, look, it's gone. You can't see it. Let me see if I can do this. Oh, where are you? Hello? There we are. Oh, it's gone. You can't even see it. Okay, so let me finish stamping, but I didn't do that on purpose, but it was a great learning opportunity. So let me go ahead and stamp a few more stamps here, or leaves around here, and then I think I'm going to stamp this one off, and I'm going to do a stamp off there. And I think that's enough stamps for me, or leaves for me, for this particular piece of, for this little card stock. Piece of vanilla, very vanilla. Mostly because I'm going to be putting pumpkins over the top of it. So let me close this up. I just cleaned off my stamp. And now I'm going to go ahead, well, actually I'm going to pull this back out again because I'm going to finish my stamping. I'm going to pull out my another piece of vanilla cardstock, and I'm going to stamp my sentiment. So I have a Harvest of Blessings stamp here. I'm going to go ahead and open up my ink pad again and tap, 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 trying not to get it anywhere except for on the stamp. I'm going to test it straight down, straight up. So now I can take this again, stamp it, and then basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to center it because I'm going to die cut this. So we've got that. Very good. Now we'll be ready to do some die cutting and some embossing. So let me put this off to the side. I'm going to close my stamp pad, and I'm going to start out with the die cutting. This particular die comes from the Pretty Pillow Box. Sorry, get this camera straight. The Pretty Pillow Box dies, and it has a little banner die. And so I decided I wanted to go ahead and use that. So I'm going to go ahead and get some tape just to adhere my banner to my cardstock. I'm going to get my layers. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to center this over my sentiment the way that I want it. Make sure I'm straight. I think that's good. and then I'm going to tape it down so it doesn't move. And I'm going to bring in, right now, I'm going to bring in my mini cut and emboss. This one specifically is available in our online store. It's in our boho blue, but we've got that. We're going to lay down our layers for our cutting. I can put my piece of cardstock and my die on here now, and I'm just going to crank it through. So we'll get this cut out. Move those off to the side. Remove from my layers. Pull my tape off. And now we have my banner that I'm going to place on the card. So we'll set this aside. The other thing that I need to do before we can move on is I'm going to be embossing our leaves. So this time, oh my goodness, I have to bring in our big Stampin' Cut and Emboss. And I'll bring in the layers here and I'll show you the folder that we're going to be utilizing for it. This particular folder is a 3D distressed tile folder. Let's see if I can pull this in so you can see it. A 3D distressed tile folder. So I'm going to put the leaves in here. Typically what I do is I just line it up with that line on the bottom, just so that I know that it's going to be straight, and then I can hold it together. And then what we'll do is we'll take our tray number 1 and our plate number 4, put them in. This is the sandwich that is required for 3D embossing, and I'm going to run it through. And this is just going to give some texture to this piece of cardstock for the front of our card. So let me move this out of the way. Move my plates out of the way so that I can show you what this looks like. So now this has been embossed. Can you see that? Isn't that pretty? Okay, so we've got that part of it done. The next part is to create our pumpkins. So I'm going to bring out our oxidized copper pieces. I'm going to bring out our punch builder. And you can tell that I've cut these so they pretty much fit the punch, but there's not a way for you to really hold it in place. So what I'm going to suggest you do is take a piece of Post-it note paper. You can basically put the Post-it note paper on the die cut, and this will actually hold your die cut in place while you insert it into the die. Now, one thing that I want to share with you, because I've done this before and I don't want you guys to make the same mistake. Once you get your pumpkin, or once you get your paper in here and you get ready to punch, it's easier if you turn it over and punch it. That said, you need to make sure that you're keeping pressure on your punch, because if you don't keep pressure on your punch and you turn it over, your paper could potentially slip and you will end up cutting portion of the pumpkin, but not the full pumpkin. So you can see now I've got the pumpkin punched. So we're going to do the same thing for this particular pumpkin. I'm going to try to use the same piece of Post-it note. I just need something to be able to insert my paper in so that I can get good coverage. And then I'm going to put some pressure on it, turn it over, and punch. So now I have my 2 pumpkins. Okay, but we're not done punching yet. These pumpkins have stems. So I've got a piece of scrap Early Espresso. Our little stems are right back here. So I am going to now punch 2 stems. Let's see. Trying to use up as much paper as I can with no waste. Another stem. Okay, perfect. Now we can start assembling this card. Here's all of our pieces. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some glue and I'm going to glue my stems to the backs of my pumpkins. Don't worry about the Post-it note. It's not going to be seen. Nobody's going to know except for you. So I just leave it there. So I've got the stem on that one. I'm going to put the stem on this one. And there we go. So has it been raining where you're at? We have gotten so much rain. It rained all day yesterday, and this morning I had an appointment, and you know, it's not getting light outside very early. So we were on the road at like 7:20 in the morning, and it was pouring down rain, and it was pitch dark. So of course you know what that's like with all the cars on the highway and the reflection of the lights and the water on the highway, and there was water gathering, and so there was potential for hydroplaning, and it was kind of scary this morning. I know we need the rain, but I'm ready. I was glad to see this afternoon that we did get some sunshine, but I think we're supposed to get rain again on Saturday. But I just wondered if it was raining where you're at. Mom, I know you were getting some rain. Okay, what I did is I just took the Pretty Peacock card base, folded it in half, and then added the Designer Series paper from All About Autumn to it. So the next step is we're going to add our embossed falling leaves. What I want to do with it, I'm going to pull out some foam tape. From my experience, and I don't know if you guys can see this or not, probably not because of the way that I'm maybe holding it, but when you emboss, especially if you're going to emboss a smaller piece of paper, it breaks down the fibers in the paper, and so it makes the paper a little bit more, I'm going to say, wobbly or soft. And so initially when I was doing this, and I was just doing dimensionals to pop it up off the card, I just saw some warping. You know, it's kind of like the card was bent just a little bit. And so it's only because we ran it through the embossing folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of foam tape. We have foam squares in the catalog, and I'm just going to take a foam square, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to even this off, and then I'm just going to put it in strips. But this will give it a lot more support than just if I had put dimensionals on. So I'm going to cut this in 3 strips. You can just cut one big square and do one big square, but I'm just going to do the 3 strips, and I'm going to put 1 strip on this edge. I'm going to put another strip on the other edge. Make sure I get it so that I don't have it sticking out. And then I can take this 3rd strip, and I'm just going to center it down the middle. Okay, so now we've got nice stability to this, so I can peel this off and adhere it to the card. And basically what I'm going to do, and I'll bring the card back in that we're following, but basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to center it with the leaves falling in the middle of my card. Make sure I got that straight before I press it down completely. Pretty much do, but I'm just watching it a little bit close. And okay, so now we've got that. Now what we can do is we can take our pumpkins and we can add our pumpkins to the card base. I'm going to use dimensionals to do that. I'm going to raise them, and we're going to start with the larger pumpkin, and then we're going to layer the smaller pumpkin on top. So a couple of dimensionals. And we'll layer this pumpkin tilting this way. And then we'll layer this pumpkin tilting the other way. And basically, I'm only going to need 1 dimensional. It'll go on this side because the other side of the pumpkin is going to go over the top. So all I'm going to need to do is take a little drop of glue. You don't need a lot, but then we can take this pumpkin and we can layer it right here. And we've got our pumpkins. Now the one thing that I didn't do that I did on the other card is I didn't stamp the tendrils. I forgot, but it's going to be cute without the tendrils as well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a bow with our linen thread, and I'm going to double it up so I can make a nice big bow, straighten it out. It's a little swirly because it's been wrapped around that, I don't know, tube, whatever you want to call it. So let me get this bow made, make it tight, make it the size that I want it to be. And then I'm going to go ahead and trim it off here. And then this is the other side. I'm going to trim that off, make sure they're both coming down. And when I get ready to adhere this, I'm going to use glue dots. And I'm just going to take a glue dot and take your pick. And I'm going to take a glue dot. I'm just going to kind of roll it up into a ball. And then I'm going to put it at the base of this pumpkin, or I say the base of its stem. It's sticky. There we go. And then I can take my bow and stick it right there. And then the last thing to do is to take the banner with my sentiment, and again I'm going to use dimensionals. So we'll put one on this side, and I'm going to put one in the middle just because I don't like sag. So this way it'll all be, maybe I should come down just a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. Pull this down, and I'm going to work to center this right in the space beneath my pumpkins. Okay, there you go. So now you've got your first card. Isn't this pretty? I gotta pull it up because I want you to see. Look at all the shimmer. Oh my goodness. I get excited about shimmer, and it's just so pretty, but it's a fun fall card. There's no orange in this. There's no Cajun craze in this. We're not using traditional fall colors, so how fun. All right, let's go to our next card. And our next card does bring in some fall colors, but we still got the pretty peacock. So let me pull this kit aside and show you what it looks like. Clean up my mess just a little bit so we can start fresh. This time around, what's in your kit is your pretty peacock card base. Your main page is going to be the crumb cake, and I've embossed that. And then you've got a sheet that we're going to layer the sheet on that we're going to punch the pumpkins on. So one of the things that I noticed, I'm going to talk about this in just a second because I'm sure you're looking at this going, what the heck is that? I will tell you about that in just a second. I am going to also bring out the two pieces that we're going to utilize for the sentiment. But as I'm looking at this, I'm seeing that this piece of cardstock was not cut accurately. So it's a little long. So I'm going to pull out my trimmer. Unfortunately, I have it right off to the side here. And this cardstock should have been 4 by 5 1/4. So we've got 4, and it looks like it's 5 1/2 instead of 5 1/4. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to trim off that bottom piece. And that way, when we align this base piece to our paper now, it's going to fit the way that I intended it to fit. So we'll go ahead and let's go get that started. Normally I start with where's my bone folder? Did I put it back? Normally I start with the stamping, but we'll go ahead and get our card base at least going. One of the things that you want to be sure to do when you're utilizing paper that has been embossed, it doesn't lay flat like most papers that haven't been embossed do. So you want to use just a little bit more glue, and you can see that I'm doing that, but I want to make sure that it adheres to my base appropriately. So this was embossed obviously before I started my live, and I'll show you the folder that I'm utilizing, but I love the texture that it adds. This particular embossing folder is called Basics 3D. And again, it is a 3D embossing folder, but it just adds a nice texture to the card. So let's set this off to the side, And let's actually start stamping. So we're going to put the pieces that are not going to be stamped on off to the side. So let's look at this card for just a second. Basically what I've done with this card is I've layered the pumpkins on top of each other. So how do you do that without getting your Cajun craze on top of your pumpkin pie, or you get your pretty peacock on top of your Cajun craze? You create a mask. And so basically what I'm going to do, this is also a Post-it note, but this particular Post-it note is sticky all the way through. So all the way on the back. So I'm going to take this Post-it note and I'm just going to take a piece of scrap paper. And I'm going to adhere the Post-it note to the scrap paper. This will give me then stability as I punch out my pumpkins. So I'm going to use both of those two pumpkins. So I'm going to set this one off to the side right now and get my big pumpkin punched. So we'll turn it over and punch. A little bit more difficult to punch because you're punching through two sheets of paper. And then I'm going to clip these pieces of scrap off so I can get to my smaller pumpkin. And I'm going to go ahead and put this in here this way and then punch. Got it. Okay, so now we've got our two pumpkins punched. So what do we do next? I'm going to bring in my Stampin' Pierce mat, and we are going to take the masks off of the cardstock. The mask is actually the Post-it note. So I'm going to take my Take Your Pick tool to help me get that. It's sticky on this side, and I'm just going to stick it down. And now look, because I used a piece of Cajun craze, I've got a pumpkin that I can use later for another card. Same for this one. So let me pull this mask off, since I can get underneath it. There we go. And then we'll pull this mask off, and I'm just going to set it here because we're going to use these masks over and over again. So let me pull out my piece of vanilla cardstock, and we are going to start with the pumpkin pie layer. So I'm going to pull out my pumpkin stamp. I'm going to pull out my pumpkin pie, and we're going to start stamping. So let me ink up my stamp. Remember, you can look through these stamps so you can see if you get a good coating of ink on your stamp. This one actually needed a little bit more, but I am going to test it out just to make sure I don't have any fuzz or anything on my stamp. And then I'm going to come to my piece of paper, and I'm going to start with my first pumpkin. And I'm going to tilt it just a tiny, tiny bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. We want our pumpkins to be a little bit balanced, if you will, on the paper. So let's clean this off. I use my Simply Chamois to clean off my stamps. I'm done with my pumpkin pie, so I'll close it up. And the next color that I'm going to be utilizing is Cajun Craze. But before I do that, I'm going to take my mask for my pumpkin, and I'm going to line it up over the top of my pumpkin. And what you want to do is you want to leave just a teeny tiny bit of your pumpkin showing, because what that will do is it will prevent you from having a white edge. And I can kind of show you this on this card. Can you see the white edge along this card? Not that it looks bad. Nobody probably would have even noticed. But if you come up here, you can see, let me pull it down. You can see how the Early Espresso pumpkin lines right up with the Pretty Peacock pumpkin. That's kind of a tongue twister. And there's no white line. So the way that you can prevent those white lines, or those white edges, if you will, is to just leave a little bit showing. I'm going to test this out. There is just a little bit showing here. Maybe it's not enough showing. So we'll see when we stamp this one, whether or not next time I stamp, I need to add a little bit more of the pumpkin showing. So now we're going to take our Cajun Craze, ink up our stamp. I'm just going to test it out over here, make sure it's all good. Got good coverage, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt my pumpkin the other way. Coming down, I will be stamping on top of the pumpkin that I've already stamped. So you can see it is on the Post-it note. Let me clean this stamp off. We're going to use it again. I'm going to close the Cajun Craze so I don't get my fingers in it. The next color is our Pretty Peacock. So I'll bring that over, but before I do, I'm going to pull off this mask, and now I can show you. It was just a little bit, but do you see a white line? You shouldn't, because there isn't one. And the reason that there isn't a white line is because we left just a teeny tiny bit of the pumpkin showing. That way the ink was able to get right up to the pumpkin. So now what I have to do, since I'm going to stamp the Pretty Peacock pumpkin, is I have to go through the same process again. I'm going to set this stamp, or what am I using? I'm using a, gosh, I just lost my words. Mask. I'm going to set that mask off to the side. I've got my Cajun Craze masked up now. So now we're going to stamp with Pretty Peacock. Make sure I get the right pumpkin. Stamps, tap, tap, tap. Oh, see, it didn't get completely covered. Can you see that? So back to the ink pad. Make sure I get good coverage. Just going to test it out again. Looks good. Get good coverage. And this time we're going to tilt the pumpkin and we're going to stamp back the other way. So I'm going to try to center it, and here we go. There's our pumpkin. Let's clean our stamp. Close this up and remove our mask. And again, you can see there's really no line there. So that's the key to no line masking stamping, is to make sure that you're leaving a little bit of the pumpkin showing. So now we're going to stamp our last one in Early Espresso. I'm going to line this mask up one last time. Pull out the Early Espresso ink. Get the right stamp. I want to make it a little bit darker, so I want to make sure I get good coverage. And then we're going to tilt it just a little bit more this way and stamp. Okay. Pull this mask off. And voila, we have our stamped pumpkins. Now I'm actually going to leave the Early Espresso out because we're not done stamping these pumpkins just yet. Now what we need to do is we need to do the stems. You can do the stems two different ways. You can actually put your mask back on. So we'll put the mask back on here. Take your stem, tap it into the ink, and then line it up where you want it to be on your pumpkin and stamp. Then when you take your mask off, obviously the stem is where it should be. Let me bring this up so you can see a little bit better. But you can see the stem on the pumpkin. You can do that. Or if you don't want to mess with the masks, and the masks are easy, what you can do is you can take this stem. It's kind of long. Let me see if I can tilt it so you can see it. It's kind of long. I don't want all of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tip it into the ink. So can you see just part of the stem is covered. Then what I can do is I can line that part of it up with my pumpkin and stamp. Now the problem that I had, and this was a mistake on my part, you need to clean your stamp before you stamp again. So you will actually see on this one, because I didn't clean my stamp, there's a little bit of a shadow of the ink. My bad. But another learning opportunity for you guys. Cleaning my stamp now, I'm going to go into the ink again and get just a little bit of it picked up. And I'm going to stamp. Now my stamp is clean, so it doesn't show up on my pumpkin this time, and I'm going to clean it one last time and dip it again, just getting a little bit, and then we'll line it up for this pumpkin, and there you go. So we've got our pumpkins now. Let's close this ink up. The only stamping we have left to do is the harvest. And let me pull out those pieces here. Let me see, I've got this one here. So I'm gonna leave this on, and we're gonna get the harvest out, and we're going to stamp it in the Pretty Peacock. And I am going to center this harvest. I got some on the edge of my stamp. Can you see that? If you don't go straight up and straight down, you potentially will get some on your ink block. It's okay. I just don't want to risk getting it on my paper, although my paper is very thin. So I'm just going to try to line this up as best I can on this piece. There we go. We've got that. Now we are done stamping. Let me clean this stamp really quickly. Close up the ink, and we're going to start assembling things. So let me move this out of the way. Your stamped pumpkins are going to be adhered to your Pretty Peacock base that was cut specifically for this. So we're going to do that. Get this lined up. And I like the glue because if I don't get it right the first time, I can move it around and get it all centered. Okay, so we've got that. And then basically what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece and we are going to adhere it to our embossed layer. So let's get this on. And again, I'm putting on a little bit more glue than I typically would use because I don't typically use that much glue, but I'm adhering it to an embossed layer. And when you adhere it to a embossed layer, you just need a little bit more than normal. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm making sure as I center this, I've got it centered here, here, and here, so the edges along each side are all the same. Okay, last part is to go ahead and do our banners. So there's a number of ways you can do the banners. This banner is actually cut, so I could center it on here. And I think actually that's what I'm gonna do for this particular card. I'm gonna do it a little bit differently. But I wanna show you on this card just basically how I did it. If you wanna make your own banner and you want to have the little flagged edges, take your piece, let me see if I can take a piece of cardstock to show you. I'll take this scrap. You take your piece and you clip it down the middle. Then you're going to go from the outside edge to the center and the outside edge to the center. Hopefully you can see this. And you will have your bannered edge. Okay? I'm going to do this card a little bit differently. I did the bannered edge on this one or the flagged edge on this one. I'm going to actually just line this one up. That way you've got two different versions of the card done just a little bit differently. And then I'll center it in this the strip that we've got, the Pretty Peacock strip. And then again, we're going to adhere it with dimensionals. So I will start putting dimensionals on the back here. And again, I don't like droop in the middle, so I'm going to stick a dimensional in the middle. You can get by with as little or as many dimensionals as you want. I like stability on my card, so I prefer to use probably a few more dimensionals than what someone else might choose to use. So let me get that off, and then I'm going to line it up right about here. So I'm centering it between this edge and this edge. There you go. The last thing to do is to bring in some bling. So I'm going to bring in my in color dots, And I'm going to put a dot here, and I'm going to put a dot up here. Let's see if we can get this. Put a dot up here, and another dot, oh, probably right about here. And there you go. Our second card is done. And you learned how to stack pumpkins. Yay! Okay, let's bring in the last card. If I can find it. Here we go. Look how pretty that is. Can you see it's got embossing as well? So what I did is I did color on color. We've got the vanilla card base, the very vanilla card base, and then we've also got a very vanilla layer before we start putting it all together. So let me pull that kit out so I can show it to you. Pull all the pieces out. You've got your very vanilla card base that we talked about. I've already embossed the main layer, trying to get the camera angle on it so you can just see how pretty that embossing is. So we've already got that embossed. Then we have the layer that we're going to use for our sentiments. These were cut out of the, give me just a second, the nested essential dies. So basically what I did is I took the two smallest dies that fit into each other and cut out the pieces. You've seen me die cut before, you've seen me emboss before. I try to keep these videos right about an hour in length, so sometimes it's easier if I go ahead and do the die cutting or the embossing ahead of time so that I could talk more to you about the technique and how we're putting the card together. The other pieces that we have is more of our designer series paper and then the pretty peacock that we're going to layer across the card as well. But there is stamping. We have two pumpkins. So let me pull these out of the way, bring back my Stampin' Pierce mat again, and now we're going to stamp two pumpkins. One in the Cajun Craze, one in the Pretty Peacock. We're going to punch out the, let me see, I see a little bit of Cajun Craze in here that I'm going to try to move out. Oh, it'll pop out, I guess. I want to make sure that I align my stamps when I punch them appropriately. So for example, if I were to punch on this side of my cardstock with my big stamp, when I go to punch it out, I have to take it all the way across the punch in order to line it up and punch it out. That means that I'm going to have this pumpkin that's going to be wasted because there's no punch on that yet. And it's sometimes difficult to try to punch them both together and stamp just because the lining them up is more difficult. So what I would recommend is that I know that this punch has to come off of this side of the paper. So I will punch on this side of the paper, and the other pumpkin needs to come off of this side of the paper. So I'm going to remember that as we go forward to make sure that I can get these aligned appropriately. So we'll take our first pumpkin, the big pumpkin, make sure I've got good coating to it. I'm just going to test it out again. It tells me I need to get a little bit more ink on it. It also helps when you're stamping and testing the pressure of what you need to stamp. This one needs to be stamped on this side. So we're going to go ahead and stamp this one. I'm going to clean my stamp. Get out my Cajun Craze. My smaller pumpkin. That one looks good. Just testing it. Yep. Okay. This one needs to go on this side. And the pumpkin, if you can see, aligns sideways. So that's how I'm going to stamp it, is sideways. So we'll go ahead and get this one stamped so we can punch it. All right. Stamping is done. Now we're going to start our punching, utilizing our punch builder. And I'll go ahead and I'll punch out this one first. When you're punching, you want to make sure that you get it aligned so that you have even borders all the way around. So let me tilt this just a little bit so that I can see. And then I'll show you guys. Because the other pumpkins we punched, remember there weren't any borders. We just free punched them. So now we've got all the borders. I'm holding it firm so that it doesn't fall apart. Very little waste. That's my scraps from that. And then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing with the Pretty Peacock pumpkin.
Here's what I found.
Oh, I don't know why it's talking to me. I didn't ask it to talk to me. All right, so let's get these pumpkins out of the way. Get some of the scraps off the table. And now what we're gonna do, oh, you know what? So you can see, tonight is my example night. I did not hold it tight enough when I turned it over, and the pumpkin did not stamp evenly. I mean, it's gonna be fine, and I'm not gonna worry about it too much because I'm gonna layer this pumpkin over it. But see, if you don't give enough pressure, it will slide, and when it slides, then you don't get the even borders around the edges. So it wasn't my plan, but obviously tonight's my night to share what not to do. All right, let's punch out our stems. One more time, I've got my piece of scrap, my stem scrap. We're gonna do one stem, and then can I get another stem out of this? I think I can. My other stem, and this scrap is done. I have used it up to the max. So I'm gonna toss that, and we're gonna go ahead and glue our stems to the backs of our pumpkin. So a little bit here. Turn it over. Maybe I want to tilt it just a little bit. Maybe. There we go. And then, I don't know if you can hear my dog. She's outside my studio knocking, if you will. She's like, let me in, let me in. All right, there we go. Okay, so now we've got our two pumpkins. I'm gonna let these dry for just a quick second, and I'm going to work on getting the sentiment stamped. So let me put that there. We're gonna bring the Pretty Peacock back out again. Stamp our sentiment. I'm gonna keep this in window for you. I did it again. Look, I've got ink on my block. Oh, you guys probably can't see it. It's right there. I don't think it's gonna cause me any trouble. So I'm just gonna go ahead and move on. And I wanna get this centered as best I can. Hopefully I don't have my head in your way. I'm going for it. Yay. All right, let me clean this off. We'll adhere the vanilla cardstock to the Pretty Peacock. Center it. And I can move it around a little bit. It's the beauty of the glue. That way if I don't get it straight the first time, I can move it just a little bit until I'm happy with it. So we've got that. All right, now I believe we're done with all of the stamping. I'm gonna bring the rest of the kit back in. We've got our very vanilla. We're gonna fold it in half. And the reason it folds in half so easily is when I cut the bases, I also score them. So they've already been scored, so they fold very easily. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna layer the embossed very vanilla layer down. So again, it's an embossed layer, so I'm gonna need to utilize just a little bit more glue than what I would normally use, but I wanna make sure I get a nice adhesive to it. And this is a bigger piece, and because of the fact that I'm not popping it up or putting it on dimensionals, it's going straight to the cardstock. I'm not worried about any of the issues that I had with the smaller piece that was square as far as, I don't know, I'm going to call it warping, or, you know, the card is just a little bit more relaxed, and so it tends to show a little bit more wave. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to center this piece, designer series paper, over the pretty peacock. Now the designer series paper is actually longer, so I'm going to go ahead and get it adhered, and then what I'll do is I'll just turn it over and I'll trim the edges even with the pretty peacock. So let's go ahead and get this centered between the two, the top and the bottom. I think that's what I want. And then I can turn it over and I'll just take my snips and I will snip off even with the pretty peacock. Okay. It also is going to be glued down. So I'm going to go ahead and add my glue to the back of this. And I'll get this centered appropriately. Okay. Then we're going to take our sentiment, and it also, the only thing that's going to be popped up is the pumpkins. So everything is single layer, although when you've got layer upon layer, it's not necessarily single layer anymore, right? So I'm going to go ahead and bring this up just a little bit. And really what I'm doing is I'm centering it in this piece, but I'm also centering it right here. So the edge of the top of the banner, not the sentiment banner, but the one I'm pointing to right now, that edge is going to be in the center of my sentiment banner. Okay? I think we've got it. Let me do a little bit of work. There we go. Okay, so let's do our pumpkins. We're going to do our big pumpkin first. So let me get my dimensionals out again. I like to put a couple pumpkins on my big a couple of dimensionals on my big pumpkin. That reminds me, I have to tell you a story. Today I was in a meeting at work. So I have a corporate job. I work a full-time corporate job, and my dog is barking. I'm so sorry. But anyway, I was in this meeting and I was introducing myself, and they basically wanted to know how long I had been with the company, the current company that I'm with. And I've been with my current company about 5 months. Well, when I introduced myself, I told them who I was, and I said I've been with the company for 5 minutes. And everybody laughed, and I'm like, 5 minutes? I don't know why I said 5 minutes, but I said 5 minutes. It was kind of comic relief. It kind of lightened the mood a little bit. But isn't it funny how sometimes you say stuff and you don't even know why you said it? You weren't thinking it, but you say it. So anyway, that's my funny story for today. I'm looking for my bling again. We're going to add the bling. And I'm going to add one here on this end. I'm going to add one here on this end. Let's see. I'm going to move it just a tiny, tiny bit because I want to make sure that they're both the same. So since my harvest is not quite centered where I would want it centered, give me a second. Let me work on this. I want to get it closer to the stitch is what I'm trying to do. That way they're both the same versus trying to bring this one in and getting it too close to my A. One more thing to do and then we will be done with this card. And that again is to use our linen thread and make a bow. I go through a ton of linen thread. I love this thread. I love decorating with it and all seasons. I mean, it's just a great addition to your embellishments when you can pull out your linen thread and just wrap up a quick bow, tie up a quick bow, and stick it on with the glue dot. So let's go ahead and I'm going to clip this end off. I'm going to clip this end off. I'm going to make sure that these are about the same size as my other ones. And then let me pull them down so that they're both going the same direction. And then we'll put it on with the glue dot. So let's get the bow. There we go. And again, with a glue dot, I'm going to do it the exact same way I did before. It's just easier if I can take the glue dot and roll it into a ball with my take your pick or close to a ball. And then I can put it right where I want it to go. And it is sticky, but then I can take my bow and stick it right there and all is good. So isn't that a pretty card? Look at the sparkle in that paper. Just even, and it's just a little bit. Okay, so let me clean these things up and I'll bring all the cards back in so we can look at them. Those are the 3 cards that we're making tonight. Remember, if you're interested, you like these cards, and you want to get the kit for free, all you need to do is place an order in my online store. All of the information, let me do this. All of the information is here. You can go to aprildaviscreations.com and go to classes, and you will see all of the information that you need if you choose to place an order. The other thing that I want to do, and this information will be there as well, but let me take this off and I'm going to put the host code up again because it's really important that you use the host code so that I know that you're interested in the kit for free. So let me pull this off and I'm going to show you the cards again. Look how pretty they are. Oh my goodness. I just love this. All right, next Facebook Live. We're actually transitioning. It will be November, and we're going to start looking at holiday cards, Christmas cards. Hi, Krista. Glad you could join us. Don't you love the pretty peacock? I do. I love these colors as well. So I'm going to come up and I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. There we go. So thank you for joining me. Like I said, next week we're going to start into a new bundle and we're going to start looking at holiday cards. So I'm excited to be able to show that to you. Kara, good to see you as well. Thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. So anyway, thank you for joining me, and I will see you guys next time on my Facebook Live. Good night, everybody.